We're here on a Saturday night talking it up. Graham, Dawgs
What's
win.
happening?
Dawgs win. Yeah, Dawgs win look good. The question of the week was who was going to play quarterback after JT came up, nicked up after the Clemson game or before the Clemson game, who knows. And the quarterback 2 was up in the air. I will play the willing naysayer UGA nihilist. And I was a little freaked out by it all, but Coach picked the right quarterback for sure. And I don't know what the decision was, what went into it, but Stetson was absolutely ready to play, and that's what you want out of your backup quarterback. Somebody that's come in, execute, and he absolutely did with a 73-yard bomb on the first play from scrimmage. Dawgs roll.
Yeah.
Take me to town.
Yeah. No, I mean, Georgia rolled, like you said. Let's table this quarterback conversation for a minute. I'm just going to get into like some quick kind of takeaways from the game. And I mean, that's first of all, when we did our UAB preview film study yesterday, we talked about how we thought they were going to load up the box like Mississippi State did last year and force the quarterback to beat them. And they did. And Georgia's athletes are just that much better, and you can't cover them one-on-one. Most teams can't cover them one-on-one, but especially not a group of 5 team, even one as good as UAB. But going into the game, we talked about the best scenario for Georgia would be to get some of these young pass catchers the ball and get them on tape making plays. And like Bowers and Arian Smith are just another level. And, you know, Smith's speed is just something that a lot of teams don't have an answer for. And Brock Bowers, his combination of size and speed is unbelievable. That one catch he had where he just sort of left everybody and slowly ran away from 2 guys that had angles on him was incredible. So, yeah, I mean, like getting Mitchell and Justin Robinson and some of these younger guys into the mix but also onto tape will make Georgia that much harder to prepare for as we see Kyrus get healthy and hopefully Pickens come back and Darnell Washington come back and Burton continue to get healthy. So I think it's exciting from that realm. The attention those guys will demand should open up more for the run game, which is good because I felt like the only position group that didn't really shine today was the offensive line, right? They were good in pass protection, but not as dominant as you'd like to be in run blocking. And they still don't really seem to have an identity yet. And I think that Luke and Monken are still kind of playing around with that and haven't found their best 5. And younger guys like Broderick Jones and Amarius Mims may warrant more playing time. And with South Carolina and Vanderbilt coming up, I think those are guys that you could roll out there with the first unit, and it's not going to affect the outcome of the game. And it'd be interesting to see how they do. Because, like, that South Carolina D-line next week with Jordan Birch and some of the guys they have up front will be another challenge for Georgia's offensive line. So I think that, you know, it's also important to remember UAB's D-line, definitely the strength of their team. Tony Fair is playing starter snaps at Auburn now, and he transferred from there because he couldn't get on the field this past offseason. So, yeah, man, I think Stetson Bennett might not have been who a lot of people wanted to see running the offense today, but the offense that we saw today is what we've been waiting for the entire Kirby Smart era. And Georgia did a good job of running their offense regardless of who was under center and stretching the ball downfield. I think UAB probably kind of did them a favor by loading up the box the way they did because it was, you know, the thing they were giving up was long passes. And so we took what they were given to us and we did it very, very successfully. And, you know, happy for Stetson Bennett, man. 4 touchdowns and 245 yards in your first 5 throws is something we'll never probably see again in a Georgia game in our lives. His quarterback rating was like 777 after 5 pass attempts. And, yeah, I'm excited to kind of see how this offense keeps rolling. The hope is you plug JT Daniels back in there and you see a lot of these same results. But, man, like Stetson Bennett's the first Georgia quarterback we've seen not underthrow Arian Smith. And, I mean, some of those long passes he threw, like deep balls were never the issue with Stetson last year, but just it was tantalizing to see what these receivers can do when you put the ball on them on some of these deep routes.
Well, if I can jump in, because
100%.
I was excited to see all those players that you mentioned. I wanted to see what we had with still while we were getting healthy with Kyrus and Darnell and JT getting healthy. But what I was excited to see was what we had backing them up, and also that included the quarterback. And what you want, like I said at the start of this, is you want your backup quarterback ready to play. And Stetson was, and from indications are, I don't think Carson was ready to play. So, whether we can go back and rejudicate the games last year and the criticisms that both you and I had of Stetson's play, that doesn't matter because he was ready to play today and we got a huge win and he looked great. And he's going to go down as a damn good dog, and I'm happy for him. And I know that there's a weird vibe going around the UGA Twitter and UGA blog post, or all the bulletin boards about what today meant. But man, like you said last week, we didn't win like we thought we were going to win, but we got a win over Clemson. We got a win today with a quarterback we didn't think was going to be the one we were supposed to see, but we got a win, enjoy it, and I certainly did, and I was happy. So we're kind of showing the what you talked about is the O-line did not look great. We're showing this these running plays we had. The stats will bear it out that we were very average today running the ball, and that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to stop us from running the ball, and they contained us, but we figured out a way to throw it over the top of them. So that's my 2 cents. The defense was awesome again today.
It was, and it's like, it's crazy that I just knocked out all these points and didn't even mention the defense. But this defense is something we've never seen before. It's deep, it's fast, it's talented. But more than anything, there's an edge to it, like from a mental, cultural kind of standpoint. There's just an attitude that's contagious, and it seems like no matter who comes in the game, whether it's a first stringer or a third stringer, there is a standard that has to be upheld, and these guys are going to, do everything they can to uphold it. Like these third string guys like Tresman Marshall busting through the center and the guard and like body checking the UAB quarterback with his chest to the ground like he was a middle schooler. Like some of the physical, just how imposing they are physically is really wild to see. It's not like UAB's an FCS team. They're a good football team. They were favored by 5 against South Carolina in their bowl game before it was canceled for COVID last year. Like Georgia's not playing UConn or something, you know what I mean? So that was wild.
And the team they just shut out last week just went to Doak and beat Florida State.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, that was another wild deal. But I think like the secondary was phenomenal again today. UAB only had 47 passing yards in this game, and Keely Ringo had a nice pick. Lewis Seen, really nice pick, and we also saw Jamon Dumas-Johnson, the linebacker, just jump that little out route. And like that's what I'm talking about when I talk about just how deep these guys are. Like Dumas-Johnson, I think he's a freshman, true freshman, first time he's ever played college football, and he looks bigger and faster than a linebacker is supposed to look. And I think we've really hit that point where the recruiting that Kirby Smart has done, you can see it all over the place. Like it's paid off, and you're really seeing the dividends of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we talked about in the preview is like we are blessed and fortunate that we are so deep and we get to see these guys play, and they balled out. They didn't just come in and hold their own. They absolutely balled out, and that's exciting to see. I mean, anytime you score half 100, I mean, it's an awesome day. So it
is. I mean, let's talk about the quarterback elephant in the room. So, I mean, I'm curious to hear your thoughts first. I know you talked about it a little bit, but like you were upset when you saw Stetson get the start, and you had some feelings about it, and I think those feelings were shared by a lot of people. So like I'm curious to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, I definitely wanted Carson to get the start. I'm not gonna lie. and I was disappointed that Stetson got it. And I think the reasons that he got the start are a little up in the air right now. But we know what we had in Stetson Bennett. He's a veteran. He's a like I mentioned, he's a damn good dog. But he could not push the offense. And I know that he had some really good games, but he also had some really bad games, and he missed a lot of throws. And you and I both, and Nathan, and anybody that watched Georgia football saw where he couldn't get the job done on certain plays, and Monken had guys scheming open in the Florida game, and he was hurt in the Florida game, but there was a lot of options. We left a lot of points on the board. So I wanted to see, Carson, who had been in the program, who was, is a 4-star quarterback for Georgia, and I wanted to see him get the start and get a chance for him to play, and that wasn't the case. And I think because you're one play away from your quarterback 2 being quarterback 1 is what I've said a lot today. And I hope that JT Daniels plays every important snap of the season going forward, or as soon as he's healthy enough. Certainly I hope we are healthy on a lot more fronts than just JT by the Florida game. But I am a little concerned at the depth at the quarterback position. I mean, and you mentioned it, you talked about it. If maybe he's developed, maybe he's another year and, an off season, he can make these plays that he didn't make last year. And if so, I'll eat crow on it. And I hope, but I am concerned at, we've been beaten by 2 backup quarterbacks who came in and executed an offense and beat a really good team in Georgia and by Alabama. And like I've said, Kyle Trask was ready to come in and picked up Florida off the mat when they were down and carried them, to the SEC championship a year later. So I am a little concerned. And that's where I think some of the negativity is with, the fan, that wants to see us get over the hump. But those are my points. And I still think now we know there's no quarterback controversy. First off, there's absolutely no quarterback controversy.
I haven't heard anybody say that at all.
I saw a couple of tweets, but it's like JT is the number 1, and your backup quarterback is, right now it absolutely is Stetson Bennett.
But it's got to be after today.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the performance, I understand where you're coming from. I think, I mean, I made that point today and I have taken the opposing viewpoint from you on this, in that I think Kirby and Monken watch practice, and so they have a much better idea what's going on than us. And it's tough, right? Because we do recruit these guys and we hype them. Like, you and I are part of that hype machine at this point, and we get excited about them, and we want to see them play. And I understand, the thought of Stetson Bennett as a known commodity. What I would say is, the guy that played today is not the same quarterback that I saw play last year. And so I think that reinforces the decision that was made today was the right one. But he was unconscious, he was hot, and there's no guarantee that happens the next time he plays. So I don't want to extrapolate this out too big and say Stetson Bennett is the guy if anything happens to Daniels, no matter what. But I do think that, he said in the post-game press conference that Kirby told him and Beck on Thursday that they were going to go with him. So I've seen a lot of conspiracy theories of Kirby pulled the start from Beck on Friday because Beck's high school coach was talking and all of that. That doesn't appear to be true. I also think, though, that we saw some good moments from Carson Beck today, but we also saw the reason why he probably wasn't the starter today. And you can't pre-read defenses in college football and get away with it. And there was a few times where you saw him look around before the snap and decide where he was going to throw the ball before he took the snap and before the defense moved on the play. One of those resulted in a pick 6, which against UAB, as good as Georgia's defense is, chances of Georgia losing that game, slim to none, right? But if that play happens on the first or second series of the game and it's 7-0 and everyone starts getting tight and momentum starts going their way, then it's an uncomfortable situation and that game plays out differently. And we're sitting here talking about how Kirby can't develop quarterbacks. And we're talking we're not talking about it, but everyone else is talking about those same Kirby Smart narratives of wasting talent and not developing quarterbacks and all of that stuff. And so I think ultimately he made the right decision, and there's no way that any of us can kind of question that after the performance that Bennett had today. But I also think that I have concerns about Carson Beck from a little bit of just like a intangible standpoint, just the way that he carried himself at times today. And I get he probably wanted to be on the field. He probably wanted to be the starter and all that, but everyone does. I don't care what position you are. I don't care if you're a walk-on or who you are. Like, you want to be the starter, and that's what your goal is. It's just his body language was a little shaky at times, and not chasing down the UAB defender after the interception was a bad look on him, and I'm sure that he'll hear about it plenty this week in film. But I think you saw some of the tantalizing arm talent from Carson Beck, but you also saw an immature quarterback, I think, both with his progressions and how he sees the field, and also from some of those leadership standpoints. So I think it's good that he got in and he gets to have that experience, and they get to work on it, and he gets to learn from it, because we saw today what having experience and adversity and making mistakes did for Stetson Bennett, right? And Carson Beck he had a really nice touchdown pass to Justin Robinson and some other things that he did in there as well. Good throw to A.D. Mitchell. So I'm not that worried about him in the long term, but I do think that if you're going to get mad at me, but like if JT Daniels goes down in an SEC championship game against Alabama, I 100% want Stetson Bennett on the field.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. No doubt. No doubt on that. And I was going to make that point. You made it. I think we're in agreement there. And I'll tell you what, Stetson came in and bailed us out in Arkansas last year. He came in and if anything, you talk about leadership, the guy that can prepare and go in and execute is what you want out of your quarterback 2 or 3. And if Carson can't learn how Stetson Bennett prepares, then he's not the right man for the job. And I hope that he gets a chance to improve, whether it be in practice or in game time. But you can't argue. You cannot argue with Stetson Bennett. He's a damn good dog, and he's done nothing but go out there and bust his ass for the program. And he's gonna have a job with the program whenever he wants it, I would imagine. So and to your point, now look, if you're telling me that if Stetson Bennett's playing against Alabama, I'll take it. We're in the SEC championship game, but I still think that we're not gonna re-adjudicate that. So hopefully JT's healthy. Because
sure.
Like I said, there's no quarterback controversy. JT is the man, and he has the entire toolbox to execute Todd Monken's offense. The boundary throws that Stetson couldn't make, maybe a year later he can make these plays and make the reads and execute. Great, but we saw what we had in Stetson Bennett last year, and he beat you out Alabama Birmingham today, so that's awesome. And I just want to see a healthy JT for sure.
For sure. And I think that having a guy like Stetson Bennett to plug in there when JT's 90% and giving him time to get to 100% is a luxury, and I'm glad we have him. Yeah. Like, my frustration today is not with reasonable takes like the one that you have, but seeing people all over the place be like, I'm done with Kirby if he starts Stetson Bennett over Carson Beck. And I'm not talking about, I saw this a couple places. Like, I'm in some group chats with a lot of Georgia fans, and I enjoy some of them, and they're fun. But like, I heard and saw and read just some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen today of people saying, Kirby, this is why Kirby's never going to win a championship. And he doesn't have a championship mentality because he's not starting Carson Beck. And it's like, well, if you want to win a championship, then you have to win almost all of your games, right? So you want to play the guy that gives you the best chance. So I think that's what he's doing. But, I just want us – can we have a moratorium for the next 6 days till the end of the South Carolina game next Saturday night where we're not going to question Kirby Smart after – pulling off a win against Clemson with 4 of his top 5 pass-catching targets out of the game and figuring out a way to do it with a JT Daniels that we now know was less than 100% healthy, and then going out with a backup quarterback and winning 56-7 in a game that honestly wasn't that close. Let's just chill. Let Kirby Smart run his program. Like, he's all the things that we've bitched about Kirby Smart, or we as a collective fan base, not necessarily you and I, but all the things that people have bitched about with Kirby Smart for the last 3 years, not getting enough out of his recruiting talent. It's hard to talk about that today. Georgia's got 44 dudes that have made a tackle this year. 34 guys made a tackle in the game today. That's absurd.
Yeah.
Offense. Go look at the highlights today. There was plenty of explosiveness. Like, the playbook is opened up. I don't think any of us can argue that. Development. Well, look at what your walk-on quarterback did today. Look at what the walk-on safety did last week. Like, look at guys like Robert Beal, who's been in the program for 5 years and is all of a sudden flying around out there and playing really fast and making good decisions and making havoc plays on defense. Like, some of these guys that we thought would never see the field, like Amir Speed or Brenny, are playing in the secondary at an all-conference type of level. So these narratives that the national media and Georgia fans have latched onto for the last few years, they're getting disproven week by week. And the reaction to that is to come up with like new narratives that we have zero evidence for. And I just hope that we can go through the next 6 days without a Twitter meltdown and any extremely hyperbolic statements about Kirby Smart's job status, because the dude is doing a really good job. And so far, I think Georgia looks like the best team in the country. If you put their resume just up against everyone's, and especially with Alabama, like Miami almost lost to App State tonight, so I think it takes a little shine off that win. I think that Georgia looks really, really good. And they're either number one or number two. Whatever they're ranked doesn't really matter, but like they look like the best or the second best team in the country, and they 100% look like a college football playoff team that is a tier above everyone else except for Alabama. So let's give them some credit.
Yeah, you're never as good as you are when you're playing great, and you're never as bad as you are when you're playing poorly. And
totally.
And Georgia, they've won 2 games. They haven't done it with a full assortment. They haven't got their whole team, and and JT is gone. There's 2 Georgia games, and JT hasn't thrown a touchdown, and he's only got 135 yards passing. And we're 2-0, and we've beaten Clemson, and we're number 2 in the country. So, let's it's a half full. It's a half full beer.
Well, it's just what I'm seeing is like all the stuff that Georgia fans made fun of Alabama fans for complaining about and worrying about over the last decade is stuff that they're complaining about and worrying about right now. And I get that Kirby Smart doesn't have 6 national championships like Nick Saban, but you couldn't position a program any better to win a national championship than what he's done so far. So let's just give the dude some room to work and maybe revisit this in a few months or something.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's going back through the games today. I don't want to have your picks up here, but you went 5-4 from your picks on Wednesday or whatever day that was. That's pretty good, dude. You were close. You had a heartbreaker in the ECU game, and you missed on the Texas game. But we're excited about the Arkansas getting a huge win for the SEC.
I was pulling for Arkansas. I mean, emotionally. So I mean,
yeah. And is the Pac-12? Yeah, is the Pac-12 back?
No, they're not back. But Oregon's really good. I think Oregon is legit, and then everyone else is a tier below them. USC's getting beat by Stanford right now at halftime. Washington got manhandled by Michigan a week after losing to an FCS team. UCLA looks good. I mean, I think that UCLA and Oregon are your 2 teams, and lucky for the Pac-12, they're in 2 different divisions. So I think there is a scenario where maybe Oregon runs the table or has 1 loss, and UCLA can get to the conference title game with a loss or 2.
All right, so 1 loss Clemson, ACC champion, and a 1 loss Pac-12 champion. Who's in?
100% Oregon. Clemson doesn't play anybody. I mean, they have the 79th, I think, ranked strength of schedule this year. Like, it's not good. And Georgia's schedule got a lot harder looking today. Seeing Kentucky looks very, very good. They have a passing attack for the first time in our lives, maybe, or since Tim Couch and Jared Lorenzen. And then Arkansas looked very, very good and very strong on the line of scrimmage. I think Georgia will be and should be heavily favored in both of those games, but
I'm glad they're both at home.
Yeah, I'm glad they're both at home, and both those games are going to be physical line of scrimmage football games. And just as a Georgia fan, I think you probably have to be pretty happy if you're a season ticket holder, because that home schedule just got a lot more interesting and intriguing.
Yeah, one of those games could be a CBS game.
Yeah, if not both, who knows? But I mean, right now, like, I would put Kentucky over anyone else in the East.
Is the number 2 in the West is totally up in the air now.
It is, and from what we've seen on the field so far, I would say it's got to be between Ole Miss and Arkansas, right? Which is a little scary to think about.
Yeah,
but
LSU looks like they're playing with just like they did last year, and A&M doesn't seem to have a quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And A&M struggled heavily today. They were very lucky to get out of Denver with a win, but I think Auburn, I think, probably blew out. I know they were up big on Alabama State. I don't know how they looked, though. It's really hard to judge their improvement against FCS programs.
My man Gator Hater texted me before we went on and said that D-Rob had 3 touchdowns today, so good for him.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
I'm happy for him. Unless my buddy's lying, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't think he would lie to us.
No, they scored 60 points, so there were some touchdowns.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. I know TJ Finley got some playing time as well, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, but that Auburn game is going to, they haven't played anybody yet, so we'll see.
It will be. Yeah, I think just going on the road in that environment will be a challenge for Georgia. JT Daniels has never gone on the road in the SEC, and that'll be different for him. But
he played Mizzou.
Oh, that's right. But at full stadium, I mean,
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Non-COVID rules.
Gotcha.
It'll be loud.
That'll be a new experience for sure.
Yeah.
That's Jordan Harris legit.
I mean, but across college football, any other big takeaways for you today? Like any games that you were surprised by or teams that you're surprised by?
I mean, certainly Florida State and the ACC overall looks. We knew it was weak, but man, it's really, really bad. Like you talked about, the SEC East is a lot better than people thought, and the SEC West is notched down. So, it's a little bit of a homer take. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I watched every Big Ten game today, but Michigan looks good. Michigan looks real good, and they've got 2 big wins. And that Iowa's good, man. They're sneaky good, and that was a big win for them and disappointing for Iowa State. I was kind of cheering for Iowa State, but Iowa's clearly the better team there, and it's
that defense is something.
Yeah,
that they have.
That's really good defense. So,
no, I think the last thing I'll say before we get out of here is, like, we would be remiss not to mention Florida, who blew out South Florida, but still Emory Jones has struggled mightily with his arm, and seems like the prediction that I had a month ago that I got yelled at and harassed about, and Florida people stalked my personal social media accounts and tried to mess with my personal life. But Emory Jones is probably not going to be the starter by the time we get to the Georgia game, which is something that you and I talked about when we did our Florida preview. And I think that's very interesting just in terms of how we look at Dan Mullen and some of the narratives around who he is and who he isn't as an offensive coach and a quarterback coach. I mean, he's still finding a way to field a productive offense, and both Jones and Anthony Richardson have been really impressive running the ball. I just think good luck doing that against Alabama next week.
Yeah, they're gonna have a come to Jesus.
You're gonna have to have you're gonna have to be able to be two-dimensional to beat Alabama. You can't just throw or just run, but especially not just run. And so that game's going to be fascinating because that fan base is pretty adamant that they want to see AR start. We know Dan Mullen's history is that he plays the guy that's been in the program longer and is more experienced. Like Dak Prescott never sees the field at Mississippi State if Tyler Russell doesn't get hurt, right? At the end of his third year there. So, the same deal went down with Franks and Trask, and it's just going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. If the fan base gets their way there, or what decisions get made. But next week, that game our first 3:30 SEC CBS game of the season, so that'll feel fun and nice to watch. But I saw Will Anderson for Alabama had to be helped off the field today, which he's a tremendous linebacker and an incredible pass rusher and just an all-around stud. So I hope he's healthy because he's a fantastic player, and they definitely will need him, not just for next week, but the rest of the season. But going to be really interesting to watch that and how it plays out because I think that depending on how that game goes, it really could dictate the rest of their season. I think if they can challenge Alabama and have some moments where it feels like a close game and keep it within a couple scores, that it'll probably galvanize them for the rest of the season. But if it goes poorly, it feels like he could start, getting with all the quarterback controversy and stuff going on, it feels like he might lose that locker room, or not necessarily lose the locker room, but just the morale of that locker room could be affected in a really negative way. And those things are tough to course correct on in the middle of the season.
All right. Well, it was a fun show, man. I'm glad we got on here on a Saturday night, and I imagine most of you guys will be listening to this or watching this on Sunday or Monday. Please follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. He's Dog Out. Graham is Dog Out West. I am Dog_Stats. We're both on dogsports.com. A lot of dogs going on there. But we love your interactions. We're a ton of people are yes. FTMF stickers are on the website. FTMF hats were delivered to my buddy John today, made in Athens this time around. So look for those next week. So
support local.
So yes, exactly. So we're excited to keep this going, man. So thank you guys for watching, and like, share, retweet, and subscribe, all that stuff. Anything else, Graham?
No. Thank you guys for watching. If you're up this late, we hope you had some fun having some content to consume, and all of you that are sharing our stuff and saying nice things about us and commenting and engaging with the content we're making, it means a lot, and we really hope that you'll keep it up because it makes this a lot of fun for us.
All right, with that, we'll see you in a couple days, and go Dogs.